Hello and welcome to the Halcyon Podcast. My name is Lauren Risley. I'll be your host for this episode. Unfortunately, this will be a podcast in lieu of another video I was going to release, but for reasons I won't bore you with, I'm probably going to give it a pass. This one's going to be a scattergun of a podcast, mainly because I've got a bunch of shit on my mind. I had no one to fucking talk to for the last week or so. I just feel like shooting the breeze and trying to make some sense out of a bunch of things and hopefully start a dialogue about a bunch of stuff that I feel like I'm always well educated about talking about. So, to kick things off, it's not going to be a sports-based one or anything like that, but we will get into this in a bit. And I do mean this is probably going to be a long podcast. This probably isn't going to be a half an hour one. It's probably going to be longer. Because I wanna. Anyway, recently, I have been made redundant. Situation being what it wasn't happy about it when it was announced, or rather say it was announced, when I was brought into a meeting room and told basically point blank there's no position for me. It's one of those situations where you really don't see it coming. But the reason why I'm touching on it is because of two things. Number one, because hopefully this is a cautionary tale to anyone who's currently in employment in the UK and isn't aware of not necessarily what your rights are, but what employers can do going forward. In my experience, something that I didn't realise they could do. And also to touch on how it makes me feel, how it makes me want to react in the future. And my advice to anyone that's working at the moment that doesn't have a clear career path like I do, like I don't, but I want to try and impart a bit of advice on. So what I'll touch on first is the circumstances surrounding my employment. I was basically poached to go and start at this company, given a pretty sizable pay rise and the promise of an opportunity to take my first foray into proper management, to be able to document it, to be able to go and say, look, I've done it now, I want to take this and go and manage somewhere legitimate and proper and big. And I was brought in with the promise that this company that I was working for was going through some fairly hefty restructuring, shall we say. Fast forward 4 months, and due to a convergence of circumstances, they've decided that there's no place for me. And it happens in employment. I'm not bitter about that. The bitterness comes from the law afterwards, because I understand the circumstances surrounding my dismissal aren't what I would call 100% legit. However, without delving into too much when it comes to that, because unfortunately I am bound by a non-disclosure clause in the contracts that we sign, albeit, as you're about to learn, the contracts aren't really worth the money the paper they're written on. Turns out that these days, when it comes to employment law, redundancy is something that isn't really covered in the strictest sense. Basically what I'm talking about here is that if you're under 2 years with a company, they can pretty much make you redundant at any point and you have no legal recourse unless there's some act of oblivious discrimination. If it was an all-woman workplace and I'm a dude and they fire me because of that, or they dismiss me because of that, that's discrimination. If I was black and it's the same situation, or vice versa, if I worked for a predominantly black firm and they dismiss me on the basis that I'm white, yada yada yada. None of that actually happened, so I'm just citing these as examples. But nevertheless, it turns out anything under 2 years you have very little recourse. Which begs the question, why contracts even have a probationary period to begin with, to be perfectly honest. Especially considering the circumstances of my dismissal, I feel aggrieved to say the least, because quite frankly, I understand what's happened since. I still know people that work there and still feed me tidbits of information. And one of the pieces of information is that they've replaced me with somebody. So technically speaking, you can't call it a redundancy if that's the case. Which infuriates me, because even though that's the case, it's one of those situations where legally there's no ramifications the company can befall. It's only me as an individual that can talk about the situation as a whole. I can discuss my personal circumstances without disclosing details of the company. So the advice I'm trying to give people is always be cognizant of the fact that the company it's not even about how hard you work these days. It's a sad fact, but a lot of times when I talk to people about looking for jobs and all the rest of that sort of jazz, I've accrued a fair bit of knowledge because I've bounced around a little bit. The longest I've ever stayed at a company was maybe 5, 6, 7 years when I first started working. Since then, the longest I've been anywhere is 3 years, and I left there because of a lack of opportunity and because the pay wasn't great. So the advice I'd give to people is that if you're going to stay with a company for a long time, okay, that's fine. 2 things though. Number 1, always leave in your own terms. Always have an exit plan of some description. I didn't on this occasion because I was still in the process of focusing all my attentions and efforts into working on this company that, again, trying to be tactful with my words, isn't as equipped as I think it would like to be to face the challenges that it knows it has to. And from a purely bipartisan perspective, I think them dismissing me was a mistake, obviously, but not, even if I'm speaking from a detached standpoint, I think it's a massive mistake. However, I broke one of those tenets by not having an exit strategy, even though I knew that perhaps this was on the table, this was on the cards. I'm not going to go out and say that I anticipate this happening because that's a barefaced lie, but I had it in the back of my mind that at some stage they might get cold feet about the entire situation because I was brought in effectively to be the progressive asshole that everyone knows that I am. When I choose to speak, I often offend people because I don't really have a sense of social... I'm trying to find the words, but I don't really mind saying what I have to say and doing what I have to do, which actually feeds back into the original point that you're getting this podcast instead of, in fact, fuck it, I'll talk about it. If they listen, they listen. Basically, you were going to get a commentary on a wrestling match with a friend of mine. Now, this friend of mine decided, he doesn't want his friends and all the rest of that sort of business to hear it because he'll get picked on all the rest of it. My point, and the reason why it pisses me off so much is because, okay, well then why do it? I'm going to release it for content purposes. It's one of those situations where it's just a cylindrical thing where it's like, well then don't do it. Don't waste my time, don't waste your time. It's annoying to me. Because I'm doing this podcast right now, and I would go so far as to say that while most people, again I've touched on this a billion times, while I would suggest that most people are perfectly happy to voice their concerns in a tweet or a post online, and it's usually one that's socially vetted in the sense that, oh, well, I'm allowed to do this because I've seen everyone else do it. I'm in the camp of, well, I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. I want to speak my mind. I want to talk about things that I want to talk about in a way that I want to talk about them. And I want to do it in a way that satisfies me as an individual, not satiates the social whims of the people that happen to be consuming my content. In layman's terms, I want to do what the fuck I want to do, and I don't want to do it in a way that conforms to other people. And that thread is going to feed into a few other things that I'm going to talk about on this podcast as well, because I feel I need to. It's that same mindset that got me the job in the first place. Unfortunately, it's that mindset that lost me my job, because the problem, and this is the thing, a lot of people profess to this, and not very many people actually hold to it. I am about as far from a sycophant and a suck-up as it's possible to be. I call bullshit on way too much. And I'll give another example. There was an individual, and I won't name no names, at this place that I worked at, who suffered from some serious delusions. And when I referenced this, I was made to feel like the bad guy. Now, just so everyone's clear, the psychological definition of a delusion is one that is inherently harmful to the individual or those around them, because you allow them to indulge in a fantasy that isn't real. Now, if you get anyone else in a situation where they call bullshit on that, and you're then painted as this bad guy because it's, oh, come on, let them have it. Just let them have it. They're not hurting anyone. No, but they are hurting themselves, and they're lying to themselves. Lies and deceit are never a good thing. The reason why you have to hide something should be cause in of itself for the fact that you shouldn't be doing it. Let's put it that way. And in this situation, I feel like I'm probably one of the few people that don't mind putting themselves out there like this, because it happens all the time. When I say I'm a YouTuber or that I produce content for YouTube, you get a very awkward stare or an awkward silence or a, that's interesting in the, I think I should call 99 on my phone just to be 100% certain look on the people's faces. And personally, I don't understand why. Because I don't see why you wouldn't want to strive on your own and do your own thing. I don't see why you need people to validate the things that you do or to give you cause for the things that you do, because what's new about it? What's original? What's fresh about it? And what I'm noticing a lot of at the moment, especially on places like YouTube, because for those of you that don't follow me on social media, you didn't miss out on much over the last month because I pretty much abandoned social media. I didn't go on Twitter for a long time. The only reason that there were updates on Twitter was because basically YouTube updates Twitter for me to say, look, I've released a video. It doesn't do it for Facebook or VidMe or anything like that. But, I have to do, because I want to promote the show and I want as many people to watch it as possible. But to be honest, over the last month and a half, 2 months, I haven't had a tremendous amount to say. It's the reason why there's not been much content, because I haven't had that much to say. I've had to focus on other things. And this whole situation has kind of lit a fire under me. It's been compounded by this letdown that I've just had, where I had a really great video, a really fucking funny video, based on me, but also based on this other individual, where we just went back and forth and we did the shtick and it was funny and it was great. And now I feel like I can't release it. In fact, I've gone so far as to delete it. It was one of the situations where I went, do you know what? Fuck it. I ain't gonna release it then. If the person who makes it isn't even proud enough to call it their own and stand behind it and say, yeah, it's funny, it was good, mate. Do you know what? Fuck it. Don't do it. I can't be asked. I can't be asked to waste my time with all this stupid stuff. And it brings me back onto this thread of, as I'm looking for work now, it's coming up a lot where you're having to describe yourself and you have to feed back to people and say, what are you looking for? What makes you special? What kind of skills you got? And naturally, I'm a self-deprecating individual in terms of what I can offer people. It's my thought and problem-solving skills that I kind of just put forward out there and let people judge themselves how good I am or not. And this is a problem. People often overstep their mark when they overestimate my abilities. And that's not my fault. I can only just say what I have to say and try and represent myself as honestly as possible, and hopefully let people be the judge and be a correct judge of character when it comes to me. And I think that over the last couple of weeks, I've been drawn to focusing on things that I shouldn't be focusing on, and it's put me in positions that I shouldn't have been in, and I've been overly defensive. Case in point, and again, this will feed back into my personal circumstances a little bit, my little one's turning 1 very, very shortly. I know, happy birthday, yay! And I think that my defensiveness has not helped my relationship with my ex-partner, which in turn hasn't helped my relationship with her, and that is something that I will not allow. And it's one of those situations where you look at it and you go, how did we get this far? And it comes back to a point that I wanted to raise, because I think you have to balance the pursuit of happiness with a firm grasp on your responsibilities and reality, because the 3 situations that I've just highlighted there are pretty much the embodiment of all 3 of those tenets, i.e. the person who is embodying nothing but their happiness but with zero grasp on reality, someone who has a firm grasp on reality and their own happiness but isn't willing to take the responsibility or the ramifications of their actions. They want to kind of skirt the issue. And then you got me, who's taken their ball completely off of all 3. Currently, as I sit here right now, I'm very unhappy about my situation and my current predicament. Why? Because I focused on the wrong goddamn things, and it's led me to making a video, and it's led to me deleting the other one, because I wasn't going to release a video that I wasn't happy releasing, and thought, well, I'm going to be censored if I do this, and I wasn't happy not making videos anymore. I missed it, and it's my way. I don't like.
Hello people, this is Rob, also known as Banhead, and today we have a interesting video for you. It is my top 5 favourite original Transformer characters. Now these characters are 100% created by me. The only artwork that is not mine is pictures of the vehicles. Everything else is mine, you should tell, because it's got like a little RT in the top. Just to make you aware, I'm not an artist. I'm not good at drawing or anything like that. So just keep the criticism to a minimum if possible. Fuck it, constructive criticism, great. And let's crack on with number 5.
A few moments later.
And that's our folks. That is my top 5 Transformers original characters made by yours truly. As stated before, most of the artwork's mine, some of it is not. So please don't sue my ass. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for more content coming soon. In fact, speaking of that, I recently posted on my Facebook, Robert Thompson, go and find me, about a video that's coming up soon, hopefully after this weekend, where I will be answering questions. Now, these questions can be anything from super serious stuff to, well, whatever the fuck you want. I'm still ready to take questions if anyone wants to post any more. I've had some fucking amazing responses so far. So if anyone does want to, just go over to Facebook and search for me, Robert Thompson. You can't miss my picture. I've got a rainbow coming out of my mouth. Anyway, back to today. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, more content coming soon. As always, if you could leave a little like, comment. Hey, fuck it, even subscribe while you're here. And yeah. Well, ham that fucking outro up. Anyway, fuck it. Ladies, guys, I have been Rob, also known as Banhead. Ta-tars.
Hello everyone, Craig here, and this is GFY Productions. We're about comedy, satire, parody, skits, whatever makes you laugh. I might be a little bit more vulgar than Halcyon, but in the end it's all comedy. I don't try to take myself too seriously, and in real life, I'm really not that opinionated about stuff. So when you come to GFY Productions, just come to laugh. If you're weird or you don't have many friends, this is the channel for you, because I'm also weird and have very few friends. Anyway, thanks Halcyon for plugging this. Totally don't have to, but I appreciate it. Great guy, great channel. What else can I say? Well, I won't say my catchphrase because don't want to get anybody in trouble. Alright, peace.
Hi there, my name is Cronenberg, or Crow as my friends call me, and welcome to my channel. Here you will find many playlists of all sorts of games, ranging from well-known titles and many genres such as Outlast, Sniper Elite, Civilizations, all the way down to the smaller games like Limbo, Yesterday, Dementium and Civ City. I also create footage of Battlefield 3 and 4, looking at loadouts, progression, etc. With some game reviews and demos thrown into the mix, I tend to have something for everybody. So please enjoy the videos, subscribe to my channel, and maybe suggest a few games for me to try. Thank you, Crow.
Like communicating on social media, it's why I came off it, because it's just one of those situations where it's not content, it's not something that I've crafted, it's not something that I've put thought, time and effort into, and so it's too easy. I want to work at this, I want to craft it and hone it and make it as good as it possibly can be and release it and let the world be the judge. Not that I really care that much about the feedback from the people that only want to kind of you could have done this better, and you could have done this better, right, okay, but you don't have a valid opinion with the greatest respect because you're not prepared to do the same thing. When you're prepared to walk a mile in my shoes, then you can borrow them, son. If not, then I appreciate you taking the time to give me your opinion on something, but quite frankly, until you've got the stones to be able to do what you say, then I ain't gonna listen to you. I don't listen to anyone that doesn't have the conviction of following through on the things that they say. I'm the sort of person that will follow through with what they say to a fault. And that's a problem sometimes, and I wouldn't advocate it for just everybody, because if we all did that, then I think a lot of problems would arise as a result. I'm a fairly reasonable individual, so I have that in my bag, whereas most people, once they set themselves on a course and a path, they're not going to listen. And bringing it back to the main point of this first section of the podcast is to talk about what I hope people are doing in their own lives right now, which is pursuing happiness to their fullest content. 100%, whatever makes you happiest in this fucking world, whatever it is, I hope you're just spending night, noon and day chasing that motherfucker. Just chasing it and chasing it and chasing it until you have some semblance of grasp on it. And once you have it, and this is a crucial part, this is something I didn't learn for a long time, don't fucking let it go. Always have your eyes on the fact that what you've got has everything has an expiration date, don't get me wrong. But the fact of the matter is you can maximize and enjoy that time to its fullest, and it's very easy to take your eye off that ball if you're not careful. But minding your own responsibilities to not only yourself but those around you, again bringing it back to the hypocrisy sometimes that I flag, yeah, I have to speak my mind, but I also have to be cognizant of my responsibilities. Hence why I'm not just going to go on a tirade about my previous employer, because it's not the right place or forum. I'll do that to their faces, and then if they try to get cute, then that's when I will use this avenue of a medium to be able to vent my concerns and frustrations. And there are many others. The problem is when I get pissed off, I tend to hold a grudge on things. It's not a good habit to have, people. It's kind of an Italian thing, to be honest, from what I understand, holding grudges for various periods of time and not being able to let them go. I would wholeheartedly encourage people to maybe be a little less intense than me. So good. By the way, if anyone doesn't drink filter coffee, but you drink coffee, please, I beg you, go down to Tesco's, buy yourself, oh God, I don't know what it's called. A decaffeinator? Decanter? Oh God, I don't know. It's got a filter in the thing and it looks like a cup with a hand. It's made of glass and da-da-da. Get yourself some filter coffee, get yourself one of those, pour yourself one of those every morning. I swear to God, I'm never drinking coffee from the scoop again. Just no, can't be doing it. It's just so much more delicious. I enjoy coffee just on its own now, just for the flavor. It doesn't have to be hot or cold. Just coffee just tastes good. Pursuit of happiness, that's what I'm trying to talk about. Anyway, so that's the first part of the podcast, talking about some personal shit, giving some career advice. I'm great at career advice, by the way. I've been in various environments and situations before. There's not really a lot in business that can faze me now. Speaking to a board of directors to speaking to a bloke in the warehouse, just give it to me and I'll get it done. So if anyone needs, this is the thing, this is going out to anyone that's listening to this podcast, especially if you've managed to make it 17 minutes in. Good for you. If anyone ever wants any advice when it comes to that sort of thing, then feel free to holler and hit me up. Anyway, we move on to the next phase of the podcast. Let's talk about a few events that have occurred recently, just because it's worth mentioning them fleetingly and not. And I'm going to get back to a few other things that I want to talk about. Because, like I say, I've been watching a lot of podcasts recently, and the reason why the podcast, just so people know why they're getting longer rather than shorter, because in the beginning when I first started this YouTube channel, that you're hopefully watching now, if someone's do you know what? Imagine if I got so big that people pirated my shit one day. Imagine how cool that would be. Just a memory. I'm up to 129 subscribers. The idea was to get to 1,000. To be honest, I haven't done much promotion recently. In fact, promotion-wise, I haven't done any promotion in like 9 months. Mainly because I haven't had time or the energy to do so. I've been busy, I guess. And I haven't produced much content, and that's something that I really apologise about. But I've been watching a lot of podcasts to try and get the ebb and flow of some of the more popular ones and how they're formatted, and that's why you're getting them no camera, much more loosely based and a lot longer, because it allows me to be able to talk about things in a loose way. It also helps me because what you don't see or hear when I produce this, when these videos go out, is I have to usually listen to them from start to finish to hide any blemishes or to enhance it or whatever. And what I've noticed is that I have some really fucking annoying habits, like the long pause and the swallow, the pack it in, and then there's the breathe, like, because I'm fat. I tried losing weight, and that's the reason why I wasn't on camera originally. Because I wanted to have this big reveal. It's like, oh my God, look at how much weight he's lost. Oh my God, we should all praise him now. But to be honest, because of the situation recently, because my car broke and I had to start cycling, my weight training has all but gone. I will pick it up again. I have a housemate moving in very shortly, so I'm gonna have to do something to just beef up a little bit, make sure no one starts getting fresh around here. But nevertheless, that was the original reason for coming off camera, but another reason is because I want to make sure that people can listen to this and not have something to watch, because what I think with podcasts is that a lot of time you spend time watching them if there's video, which is a bad thing, because really I only ever listen to podcasts as something in the background, just to keep the noise level. It's no different than when people used to put on the radio and just have it on the background, not really listen to it, but they just have it on, and if something popped up that they happen to want to listen to, they'd chime in, they maybe lean in and make a cup of tea while they were doing it. And so in that in that sort of vein, that's why you've had the content you've had in terms of the podcast and their length. And I appreciate that in the beginning, most people were complaining and saying, look, these podcasts are too long, or these videos are too long. But hey, that's why you've got Blink, okay? That was the whole purpose and reason behind Blink. Originally, Blink was gonna be the Epic Look. The Epic Look video, or hopefully be videos at some point once I start producing them more often, was going to be that. It was literally a 30-second video where I just go, shit, it's great, or something to that effect. And then when Blink kind of came along, I decided to make 5 or 6 of them at a time and release them all at the same time and have like a user interaction thing. That didn't really work out because of course there's, not the audience there. I appreciate every single person that listens to this or who has listened or will listen to this. But it's one of those situations where I look at it and I go, yeah, it's just not worth the time and effort. I'll just make Blink its own little thing. And if I want to do an epic look, taking the piss out of something, then I will. It's also the reason why I stopped asking for contributors to come on the show. Because, like I prefaced at the beginning of the show, a lot of people often get nervous or they get shy or, whatever. In props to a few people, there's a guy who's been on the show a few times, Mr. Ryan. I can't remember, I think I might have put his Twitter handle on some of those stuff. But anyway, he's been on the show a few times. He's always been a don when he's been on. Even offering a carrot to a previous acquaintance now, because I haven't spoken to him in a couple of months due to the circumstances which our mutual relationship / partnership ended. Oh God, here we go. Excuse me, podcast listeners, my apologies for that. You never get that on podcasts these days. Anyway, Rob, Cinematic Venom, while I was collaborating with him, it was reasonable. I still don't really appreciate being treated as a commodity rather than as a contributor. But nevertheless, I see his channels continue despite a video. I'm going to touch on this right now, as a matter of fact, before we get into any sporting things. What I'm seeing a lot of on YouTube at the moment, I was going to touch on this earlier on and I went on a tangent, so apologies for that. I'm seeing a lot of people threaten to quit. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, a lot of this shit. And I know why it is. It's because I haven't done it for a bit. You need a break. YouTube and social media is such an exhausting thing. Especially when, like, you're a person like me who gets overly invested in things to begin with. And then everything that you post, everything that you say, everything that you tweet, everything that you record, you then start to build up in your mind as, well, I need this many people to watch it for me to feel validated. I need to get this many, otherwise I'm a failure. And it's like, dude, chill, relax. And this is something that you wrestle with. You know this to be true, but you constantly wrestle with this. And especially as a YouTube content creator, I have a very minimal audience. I'll be the first person to admit it. I appreciate every single person that subscribes and every single person that watches. But in terms of the grand scope of things, like I know people that have started around the same time as me that now have 100,000 subscribers or 1 million or whatever. And I don't know how they've managed that. And to be honest, if I looked into it and I understood the methods of which they were able to obtain that, there would probably be some lines that they crossed that I wouldn't be prepared to for whatever reason. Mainly, like I say, creative reasons. It's the main reason why I'm not producing content for Cinematic Venom anymore, because this is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be something that you do as a hobby and as a giggle, as an expression of yourself. It isn't meant to be. It's not meant to be something that you're validated against. And in fact, there's another one, Wrestling Addict. Dude, I really enjoyed watching his videos. A dude who clearly has a passion for wrestling and making content and voicing his opinions, and had a great subscriber count considering the situation. But he's decided he wants to pack it in as well. And I don't not understand. I do understand where he's coming from. But I would have just said, look, dude, take a break. Come back to it in a few months or however long it takes. You've been producing content for a year. I'd been producing content around a year 2 months ago when I decided, you know what? I've started a YouTube channel. I've got a little bit of an audience. I've been producing things and I've got into a good habit of things and recording things and writing things and making it look and sound and feel as good as I want it to. I need to take a break. I just want to cut it out. It's the same with social media. I don't want to tweet or post anything. I don't want to know what anyone else is getting up to. I don't want them to know what I'm getting up to unless they're bothered to pick up the phone and see how I'm doing. I just need to recharge for a bit. And now I have. And I feel good. I feel like I've jumped back in right at a time when Mcgregor and Mayweather is going to blow up and I'm going to have an opinion worth sharing on something because I actually understand the situation a little bit better than most, which is great. It means I have a valid opinion worth sharing. And it got to the point where, and this is a fair point to most content creators, we start talking about shit we ain't never qualified to talk about. Ain't no way in hell anyone with a mind should be listening to us, but because you command an audience of some description, people will sort of have to listen to your opinion. They have to take it on board, rather than seeking out people's opinions who are actually qualified to talk about things like the McGregor fight, like football transfers, like social issues. People like me, for instance, with the greatest respects, are completely unqualified. We do this for one reason and one reason only, as a method of social expression. If you do it for any other reason, you're doing it for the wrong reason. If you're doing it for commercial purposes, why aren't you doing it on television? Why aren't you doing it why aren't you doing it professionally rather than trying to force your way into the situation by cottoning on and copying what other people do? And this is me saying this to people that have far surpassed me in terms of subscribers, because what they do is kind of carbon copy what everyone else does. Now, I can't sit here and say that my content is completely original, okay? The Halcyon show, the original inception of the Halcyon show was inspired by three people specifically. Angry Joe, Pro Jared, and to an extent the Completionist. Those three people. In terms of the format and in terms of the content, because, you know, it's a big gaming channel and I cover a lot of games and a lot of TV shows and movies and stuff, you know, nerd culture stuff, because I am a nerd at heart. I'm staring at a wall full of comic books and a big collage of fucking Marvel Comics heroes. Anyway, as far as it pertains to the actual layout and the content and the way I talk and the ideas that I put across, that's much more in line with Total Biscuit and the way that he chooses to be slightly more intellectual in terms of his approach. And I wanted to try and create an amalgamation of all of those things, because I fear that Angry Joe these days, I've recently unsubscribed from his channel just for full disclosure, and the reason for that is simple. I think that he spends far too much time defending himself than is really necessary at the moment. I don't see why he would need to defend himself on such a frequent basis against things, especially hypocritical things like the comment section. I mean, I've only been doing YouTube a year and I have a relatively small viewership, but even I've been subject to the occasional hate. And in fact, I'll put my hands up right now and say, when I learned that there was this culture, I had to make a video. I had to do something that I knew would piss people off. Hence Rockabye. Hence, oh God, I've successfully wiped it from memory. What's it called? Lush Life by fucking whatever her name is. I hate both of those videos, and so I decided to make videos knowing that, to be honest, a lot of people love those videos. And that's cool, that's fine. Except for that it's not! They suck! And people deserve and should demand more. I demand more from my content. I'm playing games right now that other people have bashed, and I want to try and come at it from a completely different perspective. But the chances are I maybe will reach the same conclusions because but maybe for different reasons. For example, I'm currently playing Watch Dogs. I know, Lord, it was released years ago. Why are you only playing it now? Well, number one, because I just picked it up for like £4 instead of 50 or 40 or whatever the fuck you guys picked it up for. And on the Xbox One instead of the original 360, so I didn't have all the same fucking buggy problems from the first one. And because I got some time to kill. I didn't want to set aside time to play a game that I knew I wasn't going to have time to play. I also picked up Destiny, and I also picked up The Division. I also got an Xbox Live membership, and I'm going to play through all 3 games before I go back to work. And I know that for a fact, because it's going to be at least a 2-week turnaround before I can start anyway, because of paperwork issues. Anyway, fact is, I've now got time to review 3 games that unanimously disappointed people. However, there's a difference between a culture that's been spoiled rotten, okay, and a culture that doesn't know what's fucking good for it and what isn't. Watch Dogs is a classic case in point. I actually enjoy the game. I appreciate the effort that's gone into it. And now with better context in terms of, right, well, I don't have to look at what was promised, and I don't have to look at the legacy of the game. I can just look at it on its own merits. How good a game do I think it is? Right, plonk it on my lap, play it. Is it fun? Yes or no? Do I like it? Yes or no? Do I think it's well crafted? Yes or no? Rather than You do realise that this had a content download and it was really fair. Oh yeah, we should all hate on it now. It's like, fuck man, come on, is it fun, yes or no? Well, it could have been a lot more fun, but is it fucking fun, yes or no? Just give me that answer. And then you get other people that love shit that they shouldn't love. And Watch Dogs probably is an example of that. I see reviews online and say, actually, no, this is really, really fun game. In fact, it's one of the best reviews. Actually, I'm playing the game right now, and some of the impressions that I'm getting, the combat is frustrating as hell. The controls are clunky and unresponsive at the worst of times. Why do you not just have a snap cover mechanic that allows me to be able to shoot, and then the A is a jump or something? Why is the A mapped to the cover mechanic and a B is an out? Why have you got both of those things? It doesn't make any sense. It makes firefights awkward as balls, because unless you set yourself up and you can't. It's just, it's really frustrating. Don't even get me started on the car mechanics. The car mechanics are floaty, unresponsive, the handling is terrible, and it over accentuates these long, it just feels very, very flat and uninspired, I should say. However, I love the concept. I love having a city to just roam around and steal ATM details and open bridges and cause blackouts and the dude looks cool. So, am I having fun at the moment though? Yeah, it's a fun game, dude. If you've never played Watch Dogs, I'd totally recommend you go out and pick it up now. It's cheap as balls. And, more to the point, I can play it and sort of go, oh yeah, I'm playing this, and people go, oh, okay, you're playing it now? Oh, that's odd. And I go, yeah, why should I have played it when you all played it? This isn't a social experience for me. This is me for content for my channel, because I want to experience it for myself. And this is something that, again, I'm going off on all sorts of tangents. Where are we up to now? I'm up to 32 minutes already. I told you it was going to be a long podcast. Anyway, something that I've noticed recently, and I want to kind of bring it back to the idea. I miss the times when people used to experience shit for themselves, and they used to tell stories about the shit that they'd experienced. So you could build a rapport with someone having had that story. Social media has killed that aspect of storytelling, in my opinion, because unless you've got a selfie to prove you were there, your story's kind of invalid. Story. Obviously Chester Bennington passed away very recently. Huge musical influence on me, a huge creative influence on me, source of frustration, but otherwise I would have married that man. It still really hasn't hit me yet. In fact, the time it did hit me, and in fact, I'll try and find a link to this and put it in the description, if I remember to do so while I'm posting this video, of Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington singing Crawling. And it's not the subject matter, it was just something about a chord they hit right at the end of the song, where they're looking at each other and they're singing back and forth, that it just hit me, man. I was like, wow. Linkin Park and Audioslave were probably my two favourite bands when I was sort of 18, 19. I used to listen to Audioslave pretty much every day cycling to work. I went to 2 Linkin Park concerts when I was 17 and 18 respectively. And I had all their albums. I have all of their album covers currently on my wall. Hunting Party, the most recent one. Sorry, I haven't actually listened to their most recent one yet, I'm lying, but obviously Meteora, Minutes to Midnight, Hybrid Theory, Reanimation, Collision Course. I've got the Project Revolution CD from when they played and when I was there, along with the DVD. So it's kind of weird to know that chapter of life is closed. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I have memories and stories of those days when I went to see Linkin Park that I'll dine on forever. Now, there is footage of Nottingham, the one I went to, I think it was 2000. In fact, I've got the ticket stub right here. Ticket stub, Nottingham, 24th of January, 2008. Nearly 10 goddamn years ago. So I would have been 17-ish. God damn, I'm old. Anyway, point being, and I've got the bowl one here as well. That was in 2008 as well. I saw them twice in the same year. That was in June. I saw them twice in a year. Jesus Christ, I was a fan. But I have stories because I didn't take pictures of the event. I just went there and experienced it, man. I just fucking lived it. And I was there, and there was booze, and there was mates, and there was sun, and there was an adventure, and all this good jazz. And it makes me sad that kids today are not really going to have that. They're going to have timelines. They're going to have tweets. They're going to have posts and selfies. But when I ask them, okay, but how did that event make you feel? What did you experience while you were there? You're probably going to get a blank stare. And this extends beyond kids. This extends to adults and all the rest of that sort of shit. Unless you took a picture of something, you didn't really go. You weren't really there, man. But it's like, right, but what did you do? How did you feel while you were there? What did you experience? Why did you go to that? Oh, because so-and-so's famous and, you know, right, but what connection does he have to you? Oh, none really, you know, just thought it was cool. Right, cool, excellent, marvellous. I'm really happy to have heard that story. Cheers, mate. Whereas me, I'll give you a million stories about why Linkin Park are important to me in terms of a musical influence, but also an influence on my formative years of discovering who I was as a person, who I wanted to be, having idols that created as they went and kind of epitomized my generation of angsty teens that have now sadly passed. And the angsty teens of this generation, they hunt in packs and they hunt with their fucking hair pulled up past their ears, up to the top of their head because they think it looks cool. But then again, we had flared jeans and chains that went down to our knees, and we wore black and we dyed our hair blonde, or at least I did. So it's not like we're the fashion arbiters of the world and we're the fashion high point. In fact, I'm currently a model for Can't Dress Myself magazine. I'm that good, well dressed. Nevertheless, I massively digress. I watched the Usain Bolt final race the other day. In fact, it was yesterday. And I couldn't help but be somewhat sad that even in the days of flash photography, because it was the same thing in essence, you took a picture of the event. The difference was you took a picture of something you were watching, and that image is something that you will then use to recall that moment. It's the reason why when I watched the Project Revolution DVD, it's great that it's not just me on the fucking camera, because I know what I look like. I've got pictures of me from that age. I don't need a million of them at different places with different fucking lights in lieu of a real experience. Whereas if I watch that video, it brings it all fucking back. I'm there in the moment again. And as I was watching Usain Bolt do his victory lap, I saw nothing but people with their fucking backs turned to him, with their phones up in the air, taking a picture, saying, look, Usain Bolt's in the same picture thought as me. Take a picture of him. Or better yet, just watch the man. Soak up the moment for all it's worth and experience it all for everything it's worth. You're witnessing the last run of potentially the greatest sprinter that there will ever be. And all you want is a picture with him in the fucking frame. How stupid is that? I took pictures of me going to Arsenal, but half of the pictures of me at Arsenal, for instance, if we're going to play this card, because I post them all, these are all on Facebook and Twitter, so you can call me a hypocrite if you want. Half of them are me documenting it, but it's talking to the camera as if you, the viewer, are watching me, not me is watching me. And all the other pictures are of what's going on in the match. Like, or I'm recording the match, which I'm not entirely sure if I'm allowed to do. But nevertheless, because I want to experience it again in years to come. I want to look at those pictures, I want to look back at them and go, wow, I remember that. I remember that moment, and I remember the noise of the crowd and the electricity in the air, and I want to remember the little things like how hungry I was. Because people don't really get that when you go to events and stuff, chances are you ain't going to eat when you want to eat. You're not going to drink as much as you should. You're going to be tired because you're going to be moving around in other people's spaces, blah, 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 blah. But then you're going to be knackered because of all the energy that you expend, cheering on the team, screaming at the top of your lungs, jumping up and down, the tenseness you feel while you're experiencing the game. And these things are lost when you're doing selfies, because it's like, right, okay, let's get in frame. Okay, no, I don't look good enough in this selfie. It's like, fuck, enjoy the fucking moment for the love of God, because these moments go so quick. My daughter is nearly a year old, okay? A year old. I have a daughter. I'm still getting over that fact. Why? Because the time I've had is so precious and fleeting, it's unreal. She has become nearly a toddler in the blink of an eye. And this is something that I'm trying to savor as much as I can. I don't take many pictures at the best of times. The only pictures I take really these days are of her. And they're really just so that I can look at them and experience them and reflect on them. And hopefully when she's older one day, and I can sit her in my lap and she's old enough to kind of talk and maybe not, I can show her pictures and we can laugh together and we can giggle together and we can smile together and we can relive them together. And then when she's 18, when she's all grown up, I get to look at them again in the same light, and I get to take her back to when she was small enough that I could carry her in my arms. And my plea to people, if somehow by some miracle you've made it 40 minutes into one of my podcasts, you absolute angel. In fact, if you have made it to this point of the podcast, I'm going to let you comment now with a special key phrase, okay? And the key phrase is Shazam, okay? If you put Shazam in the comments, I owe you something. If it's not a t-shirt or a mug, it's a cash prize of some description. In fact, Shazam and the amount of money that you want. Just put the amount of money that you want right there in the description, and I will make sure that it is paid to you at some point in my life. But the point I'm trying to get out to people is, look, experience things. Really take them in. Stop fucking documenting everything for social media. It's okay to come off social media. It's okay not to have everything you do validated and vetted. It's okay not to experience everything through the lens of your fucking Facebook and your phone. It's okay to peel away from it from time to time. I still struggle with that shit. I can't not play games and not watch YouTube at the same time. Try and wean myself off of that by playing games that have a bit of story and a bit of substance and have music within the game I can listen to rather than the boring, empty bits of driving from one mission to another. And I'm trying to watch more, weirdly enough, this is a weird thing, folks, I'm trying to watch more TV. Try to watch less YouTube on my phone and more TV, because you're exposed to a bit more that isn't within your usual frame of your usual echo chamber. YouTube and the internet is very good at creating echo chambers whereby only the ideas that you agree with rebound back at you. You never get a contradictory opinion. When you do, it's often deafening and you want to shut it out. You don't want to listen to it. You only want to listen to the things that you want to listen to. So, for the love of God, people, if you've made it this far and you want to claim a cash prize, just please put down your phones for a little bit. I understand it's important for some people to be able to do that. It allows them the opportunity to be able to reach out. And not everyone's comfortable being a social pariah like I am. I'm perfectly comfortable. If the world ended tomorrow and I was on my own, but I knew my daughter was safe, my mum was safe predominantly, okay, that's the only one proviso, like they've been evacuated off the planet with a few other people that I like, and I'm the only person left on planet Earth, I'd probably be okay with that. I'd probably wait my peace with that. So long as I had, I don't know, some sort of power generator and a working Xbox 360 and one, I'd be okay. And if someone from this evacuation point could beam me the latest games at some point, you know, I'm happy to pay for it with whatever currency y'all are using these days, but, you know, make it reasonable. Hypothetical end of the world scenario and I'm building it on my head. This is why I overthink, folks, because otherwise my imagination lets me run wild with other shit. Overthink on things like this rather than, well, if I was stranded on a pleasant island, how would I do it? It just makes no sense. Anyway, that concludes in 45 minutes or less the personal aspect and the ranting aspect. Let's talk about some shit. Let's talk about some clickbait, shall we? Because I'm gonna make people get through 45 minutes of me talking before I get to the good, gooey goodness of stuff. Let's have a look. So, just so people wanna look into this, because I'm gonna try and make this a more interactive experience just by the nature of having things prepared, because I do prepare for these things, believe it or not. I do. I really, really do. It's difficult to kind of pick and choose what I want to talk about within the time period. So I want to try and keep this to an hour, that if I go over, tough. Let's talk about a few things. So, the big one, the one, actually me and my old man, Paps, as he's known to my daughter now. Pops, sorry, not Paps, Pops. What is it, Pap? Why is it Pap? Pops, I don't know. I can feel the girl, can't they? Anyway, me and the old man, we were talking. Mcgregor versus Mayweather. I did a fairly lengthy podcast about this. I think it was at least 15 minutes worth of analytical work. Just covering the reasons why I think that it's a farce in many aspects to put this fight on. Why I think that a lot of times people should really be careful what they wish for. McGregor Mayweather, a few recent developments, or rather the biggest one. Paulie Malignaggi, a previous 2-weight world champion, famous for not knocking anyone out, was brought in to help the Conor McGregor training camp as a sparring partner, or rather, a kind of advisor. He's been bringing in, what you'll notice about McGregor is he's trying to use various aspects of the boxing community to legitimize his push and claim to having a reasonable chance of competing, not to say winning, competing in a boxing ring with Floyd Mayweather. Now, two individuals of note, Paulie Malignaggi, who we've already discussed, and Cortez, a retired boxing referee, a very highly respected boxing referee. I believe he's even in the Hall of Fame. But basically the idea is to try and get him acclimatized to the fighting situations, the high pressure scenario, the nuances and the difficulties of a boxing ring, because you get away with so much less in a boxing ring and yet so much more, and I'll explain. In boxing, you see a lot of times people clinching. Now, technically speaking, this isn't allowed. It's breaking the rules. You're not allowed to clinch the other fighter. That's why referees break them up. However, what you'll find is that some referees, to an extent, allow it more than others. Some referees will allow rabid punching when they shouldn't. They should be sort of saying, look, no, hey, you're punching him in the kidney there. You need to stop that. You need to watch that, or you need to be more cognizant of the fact that you're effectively punching, because you can't punch someone while their back's turned, basically. If you turn your back in a boxing match and someone punches you, that's considered foul play. Now, you're also considered to be not defending yourself at that point, so there's a good chance the referee's probably going to end the fight anyway. But nevertheless, there are nuances to boxing that are there in essence to try and protect fighters from hurting themselves pretty badly, or rather their opponents doing some serious damage to them if they're not in a position to defend themselves, because boxers exist in a realm where the most minute of opportunity has to be exploited and you have to build on it. It's seldom will you see a knockout in the vein of in fact, the two that spring immediately to mind as knockouts that come absolutely out of nowhere and make you go, holy shit. Pacquiao and Marquez, the most recent one, and Khan Canelo. Both took one punch that put them spark out, right on their asses for the world to see. What happened on both occasions? Both of them very foolishly dropped their guards. Now, that was a minute opportunity based more in stupidity or laziness or complacency than inherent skill on the part of the opponent. What you'll find in boxing, though, is that more often than not, knockouts are a combination of an exploitation of an initial weakness that leads to a drop in the guard, and then they start to pick them off and damage them. So it might be a particularly stiff punch to the stomach that makes them drop their guards below their chin because they've winded. That allows them to get a punch on the dome or indeed on the chin, which makes them then cover up to the right, which means you can follow it with a left. And then finally the right shot that puts them down either via an uppercut or a haymaker. Now, what Conor McGregor has the problem of, and by the way, just to kind of preface this before we go any further, McGregor is going to lose. For any people that want to entertain the prospect of Mayweather losing this fight, even if you want to say, oh no, but I think he's fast enough to be able to keep up with him for the fights, get the fuck out of my face. This is an exhibition. This is pure spectacle. This is nothing more than two guys that go, do you know what? A lot of people would pay to see us fight. Yeah? Pay a lot of money to see a rhino fight an elephant. Not gonna fucking happen. It shouldn't happen. One of those situations where, well, yeah, I guess if you're gonna fucking do it anyway, then yeah, sure, I'll put a $5 in. But in terms of, right, but why? Why are we doing this? This is heinous and wrong. McGregor Mayweather is the exact amalgamation of that. You shouldn't have a guy who's never fought a professional boxing match. As much as people want to give me this bullshit about, well, he boxes, he knocks people out in MMA, and he trained when he was boxing. Right, first of all, when he trained as a boxer, it was for maybe a year, 6 months, if that, and he was already 12 or 13 by that point. Mayweather was training since he was 5 years old with 2 world champions, his dad and his uncle. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry, I'm lying. His dad was never a world champion, but he's a well-renowned fighter at that. His uncle, Roger Mayweather, was a world champion, Black Mamba. Now, the discrepancy between the two in terms of ability, in terms of background, in terms of just out and out ability could not be bigger, because as Mayweather was ridiculously quiet during this period. There's been very little in terms of releases, in terms of extra info being released, apart from how much money he's spending. But the promos that from the All Access from Showtime seem to be painting a picture that Mayweather's complacent, spending money. He's not training as hard as he used to. He's doing yoga and he's going out to trips with his family, and you're not taking it seriously. And McGregor, meanwhile, he's getting all these boxing guys, and he's getting the referees, he's getting the gloves, he's getting the head staff, and he's working, and he's already younger, and he's already stronger, and he's already going to be bigger. And it's a farce. It's a marketing ploy. You're all being duped. This idea that it's this. Okay, let's relate it back to another source, Usain Bolt. The idea that he's going to go play football after he's done racing. And it's okay, so let me just get this straight. You're a 30-odd-year-old sprinter who's never played football professionally, and you're going to sign for Man United. Right, okay. Best of luck to you, because you ain't never playing, and you ain't never going to be the level required. Yes, you've got maybe some of the physical attributes, but any good footballer would be able to nullify them. And it's the same situation here with McGregor and Mayweather. Mayweather will be able to nullify anything McGregor can come up with. You want to talk about power? Okay, cool. Canelo Alvarez didn't lay a glove on him. You want to talk about fighting a southpaw? Okay, well then let's talk about Pacquiao. Oh, well, he had a torn rotator cuff. Well, then don't get into the fucking fight then. I'm sorry, but this idea that, well, he was injured, well, then sorry, dude. This is the biggest fight of your career, and you stiffen the vans. I was a big fan of Pacquiao, apart from the HGH, consumption prior to that, but nevertheless. And then you want to talk about the youth aspect. Well, pretty much every fighter he fought, with the exception of maybe Shane Mosley and I think Zab Judah. Yeah, I think Zab Judah was a little bit older than him when they fought. But then you got Oscar De La Hoya. Okay, cool. Oscar De La Hoya gave him a run for his money. But towards the end rounds, the more I watched that fight, the more I realised De La Hoya really didn't have that fight. His punches were that of someone trying to look busier than he was. An individual that should have been conditioned far better for a 12-round hunt, rather than a 6-round, trying to get the rounds underneath his belt when he was never going to. You're never going to outpoint Mayweather. If you're going to try and defeat Mayweather, you have to have a plan of taking him down within the rounds, because no one's going to be as quick, no one's going to be able to move, and no one's going to be able to outbox him. I mean, there's conjecture that he should have won the gold when he competed in the Olympics. There's big conjecture that he shouldn't have lost that, but nevertheless, that's for judges to decide, not me. And the hype pieces that are going out really annoy me, because the more I hear about people back, with the exception of the old man, the more people are saying, well, actually, no, I think McGregor might actually have a chance. And, he's southpaw, so that can give him trouble, and he's naturally bigger and stronger. Mayweather has fought against individuals with those exact same attributes, the same slants before. It's all happened before. And the fact is, I'm watching it more for the hype. I'm enjoying the hype around it. I'm enjoying people talking about it. I'm enjoying the conjecture. I'm enjoying the back and forth, because I am sitting squarely on the fence in terms of taking a side. I think they're both a bit arseholish. I don't like McGregor that much. I don't like Mayweather that much. But watching them just swing handbags at each other is fucking hilarious. Again, to reaffirm, Mayweather by points. I don't think anybody's getting knocked out in this fight. And if it is anybody, this might surprise some people, I think it might be McGregor that gets knocked out in this fight. I don't think it will happen. I think if McGregor gets knocked out, it will happen around the 7th or 8th round, beyond what he's used to. He'll have taken a bit of punishment by then. His hands will have dropped. His lateral movement won't be what it was, especially considering the weight of the gloves. That'll start to really weigh heavy on him, and his guard will naturally drop. I don't think people give McGregor a hard enough time for the knockout he should have faced against Nate Diaz, because let's face it, he was pretty much out on his feet from that right hand that Diaz caught him with, and he was not there for a minute. And if Diaz had a bit more about him, or maybe wasn't so bloody-eyed in the first fight, he could have knocked him out rather than just tapped him. But nevertheless, McGregor isn't infallible, and he ain't as tough as I think people think he is. And I think that they're doing an excellent job of hyping this fight as something that's people are saying he's got a reasonable chance of winning, and that's nice. But it will be one of those situations where you go, damn, that was a boring fight. Mayweather went and won 50-0, $300 million in the bank. Right, bye then. And I'll tell you what, we'll wrap up this podcast with one final story. Neymar, the transfer. I was going to talk about a bunch of other things on this podcast. The WWE, Usain Bolt's final race in a bit more detail. I will touch on one other thing before I end this podcast, as a matter of fact. Arsenal won the Community Shield today. Woo-hoo! Won't touch on more on that because I didn't see the game because it wasn't on any of the channels that I have access to. But I know we drew 1-1 because of Said. I want to pronounce this right. Kolinsinak. Oh God, I don't know. I'll have enough time to get your name right during the course of the season, my lad. So we won that, which is great, because that means we've got 2 for 2 against Chelsea in terms of cups, even though the Community Shield doesn't technically count. But the Neymar transfer. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the day that contracts everywhere, it seems, my personal situation included, become basically worthless. Filtered coffee, so good. If that's annoying you, by the way, tough. Anyway, welcome to a day where a football club can spend £198 million on a player in an age of financial fair play and get away with it. It's, again, the old man prefaced this really, really well. It is a piece of legislative mastery. It is a work of art in terms of legality and in terms of subverting legal expectation, because they have gone and they have said to pretty much every association now, from now on, any contract, no matter what clauses are in there, are null and void. Any issues that you put in place, i.e. financial fair play, we will subvert. If the money is there, we will go, and that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And it makes me a little bit concerned because it sets a very dangerous precedent for not only football players, but contracts in general. I mean, we live in an age now where words are not bonds, and even if you get something written down, if you have no legal recourse, there's no reason why someone won't enforce it. I mean, I'll give you an example. The fact that I don't know of any players that reach the ends of their contracts and then sign new contracts with their clubs. They don't play to the end of their contract, okay? And then literally as they finish their contract, they sit down with their club and say, right, cool, I've played that contract out now. I would like to re-sign with you. Let's negotiate a new contract. It's always with a year to go or 2 years to go. Now, I understand from a perspective of the board, it's like, well, why would you let them go? Because then they could go. It's like, well, right. But why do we live in an age where if a player's contract runs out, you naturally assume they're going to go? Why is that? When did that happen? When did that become a thing where it's like, right, well, I've played my contract, but I'd like to stay. Let's talk about what we can offer each other. It's a sad thing. And my old man, he made a reference where it's like, it's going to get to a point where it's like, right, we'll play for this team for 1 month, and then this team for 2 weeks, and then this team for a month, and then this other team for 3 weeks, because these teams it'll become effectively a fantasy league. Players will be free agents and mercenaries to the extent where they will play everywhere at any time for any amount of money that's going around. Contracts will become a thing of the past. There's no point in signing someone for 5 years when you're only going to get them for 2. First season, they don't perform well enough, so all the fucking, any media outlet starts laying into them because of the money that was spent. Spend 2 less, and the media's like, well, it's not very aspirational. Spend too much, and you're killing the game! And especially if they perform, then all of a sudden the media vindicate and say, well, £70 million is perfectly reasonable money, in my opinion. literally 4 or 5 years ago, £50 million was an unspeakable, ungodly amount of money. It bought you Falcao and James Rodriguez, okay? 2 players at varying ends. You got one that had bags of potential that just come off a World Cup where he'd done really, really well. In fact, no, this was prior to the World Cup. So this is going back when he literally first joined Monaco. And he was 30, 40, 50 million quid if I remember correctly. And then you had Falcao, who was a proven goal scorer, 50 million quid. And I was like, that's a lot of fucking money. It's a lot of money. And as we sit today, less than 10 years later, it's now 198 million pounds. For a premium world-class player around the 24, 25, 26-year-old mark, in the prime of their career, it will set you back nearly 200 million pounds. And that is ridiculous. Football cannot sustain that level of growth. It cannot sustain and grow to that extent without alienating the fans to an extent, but certainly pricing them out when it comes to just watching the fucking thing. If it wants to become like Formula One and a marginalised sport, because with the greatest respect, I know there's a lot of money in Formula One, but that's only because the rich use it as a playground. If football becomes the same thing, there may be a toss-up between the two in terms of, right, well, what are we going to do now? And the common man will go watch something else. MMA's starting to grow a lot, rugby's growing a lot. Hey, man, I'm tempted to go and give rugby a chance. I'm trying to watch MMA more. I'm not that tempted to pay 50, 60, 70 quid a month to watch a fucking football game when I could spend the same money going and watching it. But then again, actually saying that, it's probably going to cost me double that going to watch it these days, because the ticket price is going to have to go up because they're spending so much fucking money on players. It's a horrible cycle, and this signing is one of those ones that makes me really worry, because I don't think it should have been allowed to begin with. The whole point of that particular buyout clause was no one is ever going to pay that much. It's a preposterous amount of money that no one will ever pay. And PSG, and more to the point, legally they shouldn't have been able to. They shouldn't have been able to spend that much money, because there's no way PSG turn over that much. They sold 10,000 shirts for the first couple of days. Hey, even if you're charging £100 a shirt, that's not a lot of money. That's maybe 10 million? 10 million, that's it? What, are you going to do that every season for the next 20 years? No, of course you're not. But yeah, it's one of those, it's a signing that I think is it's a death knell for transfers as a whole, and the idea that football is progressing at the same rate as anything else, because when you jump double in terms of, because £80 million was already a laughable amount of money, £90 million, or however much they paid for Paul Pogba, was a ridiculous amount of money, even considering his age and debatable talent. Now you're talking £200 million. Every other club in the world is going to look at their player now and go, well, Eden Hazard, he must be worth 150 million then. Kylian Mbappe, guy who's had one season, he's worth 150 million pounds easy, 170 million pounds easy. No, I'm sorry, it's ridiculous. It's nonsensical and laughable. Just like the McGregor Mayweather bout in terms of how it's been composed and how it's been brought together. I just wanted to touch on that because it's shocking, but it sets a very unnerving precedent for most clubs, because now the market is going to be completely at the behest of what the top end is versus what the bottom end is. So, hey, it's nice playing FIFA when it's only on your Xbox, but goddamn, I really wish these football clubs would stop doing it for real life. Anyway, we will wrap up the podcast here. Just a few things before I go. As always, links in the description for all the other content creators that I would hope that you would go and check out for me. Updates on videos coming up. I have a few blinks that are still made. However, while I'm off, I'm going to endeavour to try and film and post a few more videos along the Razor review route, along the Halcyon route, along the weekly show route, and a couple of epic looks, because they're quite easy and straightforward to make. So hopefully you'll get a diversity of content, you'll get a diversity of opinion over the next couple of months while I produce more content. I have a housemate moving in, so God bless him, he's going to have to put up with that. Maybe should have made some content while I didn't have anyone in the house, but never mind. For those of you that have watched my content recently, I really appreciate it. I really say thank you to everybody. I will be tweeting and being on Facebook more now because I'm kind of over it. I'm going to try and get back. I'm going to try and get back in the game. I'm going to try and get more involved. And yeah, so I guess we'll wrap that up there. Upcoming videos and reviews, like I say, I won't touch on it too much because you'll get updates as and when I decide what I'm doing. So yeah, this was a long podcast, so apologies for that. I went off on a few different tangents. I've probably pissed a few people off while I've been doing this podcast, so I'm not so sorry about that, but nevertheless. Anyways, I have been your host, Lorne Wisely. This has been the Halcyon Podcast. I hope whatever you're doing this evening, you are taking care of yourselves, you're having fun, you're happy, you're healthy, and more importantly, if you happen to, have some extra money laying around, you can mail it to me if you like. I promise I'll put it to good use, fueling myself with chicken. But yeah, thank you very much for your time, listening to this podcast, watching as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.